My beloved husband, Jonathan Pollard, is completing this November 30 long, harsh years of incarceration in the United States.
Only the massively naive would for one split second believe friendly governments don't spy on each other. It remains a staple of doing business locally and around the globe, and no amount of denial can whitewash the truth. Jonathan J. Pollard was an American government worker who admitted spying on America for our good friends in Israel. Now, after 30 years in prison doing a life sentence, he'll go free soon. And of course, it is only a coincidence. It happens as the Obama administration is trying to bamboozle the American public and the world that their deal with Iran, the nation that wants to wipe Israel from the face of the earth, is the best nuclear option available. Fact over fantasy. Welcome back, former CIA analyst, yet who still has her ear to the intelligence ground, Lisa Ruth. And from Israel, the former mayor of Shiloh and founder of the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, David Rubin. I thank you both for being with us. Mayor Rubin, let me start with you. This release of Pollard, is it making waves in Israel, or is it really seen as just, here's something nice that we can do for you, seeing as we didn't, and I mean the Americans and the Obama administration, didn't get the job done with Israel, or with Iran?
No, there's certainly no gratitude towards the Obama administration over this, or frankly, towards the United States. Jonathan Pollard is viewed as a hero in Israel. Now, yes, it's true that he did spy on the United States, and as you cited in the introduction, that there are many cases of American spies who are spying for foreign countries that America is friendly with. But generally, we're talking about a 2 to 5 year sentence. And here we're talking about a 30-year sentence that is being concluded in November. So, yes, in Israel it has made the headlines. Jonathan Pollard is considered a hero in Israel because some of the information that he was given was information that Israel should have been given by an ally, and he actually most likely saved a lot of lives in Israel.
I'm very curious, and Lisa, what's the American intelligence community feel about this release of Pollard here? Because it would seem to fly in the face of a lot of people who said he basically spied on his own people.
Yeah, and again, you know, there's a lot of different ways of looking at this, certainly, but the intelligence community's view is really so simple. And Ed, you and I have talked about this with Snowden. Treason is treason. And, you know, I understand, I have friends in Israel who we've had quite exciting conversations over the last 48 hours. But there is a lot that's not publicly known about this case. And while there is one viewpoint that says, oh, this information should have been given to Israel based on the agreements that the United States and Israel has, frankly, it wasn't up to Mr. Pollard to make that decision. But secondarily, intelligence sources, and this is out there, open now, there's a lot of sources who've come out, say he also sold information to Pakistan, South Africa, and approached 3 other countries. You're also talking about the numbers, a room 6 feet by 10 feet. That's how much information he gave them. Literally, it would fill that room. This isn't a secret. This isn't a piece of information. And so from my intelligence standpoint, aside from compassion and everything else, he committed treason, and it was a life sentence that he signed off on when he signed that plea agreement.
All right, now let's go ahead and talk about the second issue here with regard to Israel, and that is Iran. On Friday, Secretary of State John Kerry expressed real concern, in his opinion, about what might happen to Israel if Congress rejects the Iran nuclear deal. I want you to both listen. Here's what he said.
I fear that what could happen is if Congress were to overturn it, our friends in Israel could actually wind up being more isolated and more blamed. And we would lose Europe and China and Russia with respect to whatever military action we might have to take.
Mayor Rubin, here we have back in the States, Senator John McCain says it is basically opening the door for a shopping spree on the international arms market for Iran. And another congressman basically said that John Kerry sounds like a used car salesman. What is the effect and what is the backlash in Israel?
Not just a used car salesman. He's threatening Israel. That Israel will be isolated, and it's not a fear, it's a threat, and it's not looked at very kindly over here. I tell you very simply, this agreement with Iran is an existential danger for Israel. We're talking about Israel being wiped off the map in a minute if Iran is able to have and use the nuclear bomb. And this agreement enables them to get the nuclear bomb. There's virtually nothing in this agreement that will stop them from getting the nuclear bomb, and there's a lot that will enable them to get the nuclear bomb.
Would you say then that more people in Israel now, very quick answer from you, are insulted by what John Kerry is saying these days?
Oh, of course, it's not the first time either. Kerry has been known to spew a lot of nonsense out, and but it's not just nonsense; it's malignant nonsense.
Lisa, Ruth, I got about 45 seconds left. Mohammed, or I should say Mullah Omar, is dead. My goodness, it seems to have been 2 years now. We're finally finding out. Just knowing this, does it create any difference? Should we see anything different happening in the Taliban? And why did it take us 2 years to know that he was dead? 30 seconds.
30 seconds, quick answer. It doesn't make any difference. The fact that they've continued to operate for 2 years without any problems really illustrates the problem with going after leadership rather than getting rid of the organization.
Do you think that the Taliban will pursue that peace deal with Afghanistan's new government, or is that simply something that's just a wishful thinking issue?
Oh boy, that's what I would call big wishful thinking, and if they do pursue it, good luck keeping it. I don't believe it for a minute.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else is going to fall for it. They're not falling, at least in Israel, what John Kerry is saying, and we're not falling here for what's being said about the Taliban. Lisa, Ruth, Mayor David Rubin, always a pleasure to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. We will talk again. Coming up next, lessons on how to be a multimillionaire and also run for President of the United States. A gentleman who has done it before, not once, but twice. Steve Forbes joins the fray when the fastest 60 minutes in news continues.